30 years ago, Neale Donald Walsch wrote an angry letter to God, asking why nothing in his life was working. Shortly after, to his surprise, he received a response from God. The answers he received, he put into a book. That book went on to become one of the greatest selling books of all time. That book is called Conversations with God. What does a person need for enlightenment?
Do you think it's a coincidence that every single person that we've called a spiritual master, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the Buddha, Mother Teresa, is it a coincidence that every single one of them has been a teacher? If you wish to experience enlightenment, cause another person to experience enlightenment. Or as God said, be the source in the life of another of what you wish to experience in your own life.
Why are we here?
I don't think that most people understand who they are and why they're here. And God's reply to me was, Neale, sweetheart,
Neale Donald Walsch, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you making time.
it's lovely to be here with you. How may I serve you?
We were talking before the book Conversations with God, and you've done, I believe, 38 books in total. The Conversations with God book has now sold 7.5 million copies, so I read on the internet. And I want to ask you what your relationship as a man is to fulfillment. Where do you feel in your relationship to fulfillment? Do you feel fulfilled in your life? And what does fulfillment mean to you?
Yes, I feel fulfilled in my life, and fulfillment means to me that I have moved into completion of what my soul has desired for me to experience. And what my soul has desired for me to experience is an awareness of who I am and a sharing of the messages I've been given. So I feel very fulfilled in that process, but I'm very clear as well that feeling fulfilled does not mean that there's nothing more to do. It means that I feel that I have fulfilled my mission, but the mission goes on and it continues. And it will never end for me until the day I leave my body. That's my determination. It's kind of like a marriage. You know, my wife and I said those wonderful words in our marriage vows, until death do us part. And we've kept that promise to each other. And I feel the same way about the mission that I've embraced in my life. Until death do us part. So I continue to do what I've been invited to do, which is to share my understanding of life and of God and of who we all are.
Is there anything you believe today that you did not believe 30 years ago? Or anything that stands out to you, that like a truth that you know to be true now that you did not believe to be true 30 years ago, 40 years ago in the past? Does anything stand out, something that you know now that you didn't know before?
Yes, for me, it's that God loves us without condition, that there are no limitations, that God's love for us is not a trade deal. It's not a transaction. So if I put it into one sentence, what I've learned now that I didn't know then is that God's love is not transactional.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, a major nation enters into a trade deal with a smaller nation. You give me what I want and I'll give you what you want. God doesn't interact with the sentient beings in the cosmos in that way, if my understanding is correct. God simply loves us without condition, without limitation, without judgment, without condemnation, and without punishment. We're not punished for anything because God doesn't even need to forgive us. That's, I think, the major point that I didn't know 30 years ago. God never forgives us for anything. You know what's interesting, Aaron? When I bring that message into a church, and I've been invited to speak to churches every now and then. And when I bring that message into church, I say to my congregational audience, God will never forgive you for anything. The place goes crazy. Everyone has crossed eyes. Sometimes people get up and just walk out of the church and just say, New Age philosopher, what does he know? But I invite them, I say, hang around for about 15 minutes. You can still disagree with me, but at least hear me out. And, some other people will say, okay, fair enough. They sit back down and they hear me out. And here's the reason that God will not forgive us for anything, because God understands why and how we could do what we would do.
Mhm.
And I was given the following message, Neale: understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the master. And as an example, God said to me, you're having dinner, let's say, with your grandchildren, and your 2-year-old grandchild knocks over the glass of milk, maybe even deliberately, just to get some attention or to make a ruckus at the table, or because he didn't get what he wanted. So he knocks over the glass of milk. Now, as a grandpa, do you say to your 2-year-old grandchild, it's okay, sweetheart, grandpa forgives you?
Yeah.
No, you don't. Because you understand that forgiveness is not part of the equation. Understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the master. And because as a grandpa who is 82 years old, you understand how your 2-year-old child could act like a 2-year-old child.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean you condone the behavior. It doesn't mean that you agree with what's occurred. It doesn't mean that you hope it's continued or that it's repeated, but it does mean that you understand how a person could do or say what they did or said in our presence, whether they're 2 years old or 40 years old acting like a 2-year-old. And when I was 40 years old, not all the time, but once in a while, I acted like I was 2 years old. Even when I was 42, talking to people I was in a relationship with, talking to the next door neighbor when I was upset about something, whatever, acting like a 2-year-old. Now I hope that a person can understand. And I try to understand other people who I see are acting like 2-year-olds. And I understand, and my understanding replaces forgiveness in my mind. And my response to them, coming from a place of understanding, is dramatically different from what it would have been 30 years ago. So that's my long answer to your 30-second question.
It's a beautiful answer. What is your age today?
Let's see, today, exactly how many hours and minutes? I'm 82 years, 46 hours, 17 minutes, and 14 seconds old.
I do a similar thing. I have an app where it's off now, but I have 10,560 some days until I'm 67. It's off. It's like off by a couple months now at this point. But I would do, sometimes I'll do similar time tracking things of, life. Do you have any regrets in your life, Neil?
Um, am I human? Yeah, I think I have some regrets in my life.
Hmm.
The answer is yes.
Is it too personal to share?
No, I regret most of my interactions in my earliest relationships. I've had more than one marriage, actually more than two marriages. So well, actually, I've had more than three marriages. So in my life, well, actually, I've had more than four marriages. But as I move through the experiences of my life, well, actually, I've been married more than five times. So as I move through, well, actually, I've been married more than six times. So when you ask me if I have any regret, Well, actually, wait a minute, let me see. Which marriage am I on? Number 7. Okay, thanks. All kidding aside, I try to use humor to lighten the tension, but in fact, I've been married 7 times because I didn't understand the nature of love. I thought that love was a transaction. I'll give you what you want if you give me what I want. Only in my 7th marriage have I been able to say to my wife, you know what? I didn't marry you because of what I could get from you. And I don't love you in order to get some love back from you. I love you simply because of who you are, because of who I see across the room, whether I get to share any of it or not. My love for you is without condition and without requirement. I don't need any return, any more than God needs a return from me for loving her. So I've come to understand that true love, honest love, pure love requires nothing in return. And that's why my 7th marriage has lasted 17 years, which doesn't seem like a lot to some people. But for me, to be married to the same person for 17 years after 6 failed marriages is a miracle. But I understood that if I love people the way God loves me, everything will change. And everything has changed. No one could accuse me of being, an unavailable male. I was willing to marry. I was willing to make a commitment. And I wasn't joking around. Well, I've actually had 6 failed marriages, but at least I was willing to say, yes, I do. I do love you.
Hmm.
And I take you for my wife. And I'm so sad. Honestly, do I have regrets? Yeah. I'm so sad that those 6 wonderful ladies, 3 of whom are no longer even with us, they passed on. I'm 82, and they passed on in their 60s and 70s. I'm so sad that I put them through what I put them through. That I had to hurt so many people for me to learn how to stop hurting in the name of love. I mean, come on, Neale, grow up. So yeah, I've had a few regrets.
Was there a core theme in the fear that you held that created the, say, sabotage of the relationships? Is there anything that you've been the most afraid of in your life?
Actually, I'm going to give you what's going to sound like a very unorthodox answer. If it doesn't sound almost braggadocio, I'm sorry if it does. But for some reason, I'm not sure, for some reason, fear has not been a part of my life.
Hmm.
I'm not saying I've never been afraid of anything. I'm saying that fearing particular outcomes has not been a major part of my life. Whether I embark on a new career, and I've had like 4 entirely different careers, or whether I embark on a new relationship or any new experience whatsoever, I've not been visited by fear. I figured it'll turn out the way it turns out, and I'll be okay one way or the other. So I can't say that fear has been a major challenge in my life, which is interesting, Aaron, because I spent most of my life uh, in the media as an on-air personality, talking to thousands and thousands of people. I had a nationally syndicated radio talk show, as one example. I was the managing editor of a newspaper, as another example. So I was continually placed in front of other people um, in fascinating ways. But I was never afraid. Never thought, oh, I hope I can do well, or I hope I don't blow it, or I hope this doesn't go badly, or what if? I never thought about things like that.
What's up, y'all? I want to take a moment and share a word from our sponsor. This podcast is brought to you by Kaizen. Kaizen is by far the cleanest electrolyte company that I have come across. They care so deeply about every individual ingredient that goes into these packets. They use microplastic-free pink Himalayan sea salt. They use organic flavors. Mixed berry is by far my favorite. It's insanely delicious. It tastes like you're eating or drinking real food. Sometimes electrolytes, they have like a weird metallic battery-esque type taste. This tastes like food. Tastes organic, it tastes delicious. In the lemon lime flavor, they actually use real lemon and real lime. It's absurd. I haven't seen any company that cares more about their ingredients in the electrolyte space, and I think you guys will enjoy it if you try it yourself. If you would like to try it, you can go to livekaizen.com/align and you will get 15% off. That's live, L-I-V-E, Kaizen, KAIZEN.com/line for 15% off. Cheers. What
And
was what blocked you in your relationships?
expectations of the other person, failure to understand what could cause them to behave or to act the way they were, and failure to understand what could cause me to act and to say some of the things that I said and the ways that I acted.
Hmm.
So I was just not comprehending the true nature of interactive, loving relationships.
I believe I think I remember reading this from your book, Conversations with God, or maybe it's just something I've kind of put together from other places, but the perspective that things operate in kind of a binary nature of either love or fear. And if a person is acting in some type of way, they're exhibiting greed or some type of resentment or some type of, sensation that kind of feels more
Well,
contracted in nature.
yes, I agree with that. That statement does appear in Conversations with God. And if we want to redefine fear in a different way, I mean, I wasn't ever afraid, in terms of, like in the sense of being scared.
Yeah, I understand.
But I did have some fears in the sense of being, apprehensive, which is a little bit different in my mind than being scared. For instance, just to use this lighthearted example to make the point, I go to a restaurant. My favorite vegetable is corn, cream corn. It's my favorite veggie.
It's good.
But sometimes I look on the menu and they don't have any cream corn on it. And sometimes I might be, even when I walk into the restaurant, gee, I'm afraid, I'm apprehensive. What if they don't have any corn on the menu? See, so it's that kind of a thing I'm talking about.
Mm,
But I've been able to move through since my apprehensions are not so huge
mhm,
that it stops me from stepping into what I want to step into, stepping into broadcasting as a live on-air radio personality, stepping into journalism, first as a cub reporter, then as a beat reporter on a very important political beat, and then as the managing editor of the entire newspaper. So I've never been afraid in that sense, nor have I been afraid to enter into even my seventh relationship. I remember that when that occurred, I was very, very willing to try it again, even though I had had 6 failed marriages. Again, I'm not being arrogant about it. I'm ashamed that I couldn't find a way to make those marriages work, and I feel very sad for the pain I put those people through. But I was not unwilling to step into the scenario again because I wasn't afraid. So fear has never stopped me from being or doing
mm,
what I've chosen to be or do.
mm.
I'm sorry if that sounds like, as I said earlier, an arrogant answer, but that's been my
No,
experience. I'm trying
no.
to be as honest with you as I can be because my friends told me to just to lie to when Aaron asks you questions.
Something I think is so there's a quote from Rumi that I paraphrase and mess up, but it's like your task is not to seek love, but to reduce the barriers in which you block yourself from it. And something from um, conversations with God as well, or a concept from it is that there's nothing to learn or to do. It's life is a process of remembering. And and I'm paraphrasing as well, so please feel free to correct if I'm saying anything that doesn't
No, that's
sound
exactly what
coherent or
it
correct.
says.
My question to you is why does it take a person in this human experience so dang long to remember their divinity, to remember how powerful they are, to remember how pure they are, to remember the light that they are, to release the baggage that is our traumas and is our contractions and is our fear-based actions. Why does it take so darn long to drop our shit?
Well, there's no one size fits all answer to your question. It's not like the same answer for every person. So I'm going to refuse to try to answer that question for the 8.5 billion people on the earth.
Yeah.
I can only tell you why it took me so long. Because the answers to the question, how can I truly love purely, seemed to me to be too good to be true. I couldn't believe that God loved me purely. And I couldn't believe that it was possible for anyone else, any other human being to love me purely. And I wasn't even sure that I could love anyone else purely without, saying again, without requiring anything in return. I even said to God in my conversations with God, you know, the answers that you give me to my questions, especially, what are your conditions for your love? And you say, there are none, no conditions. Sound too good to be true.
Mhm.
Just plain too good to be true. And God's reply to me was, Neale, sweetheart, if God can't be too good to be true, who can? That was supposed to bring at least a little bit of a grin to your face because that
Sorry.
was the answer. That was God's answer. If God can't be too good to be true, who can?
We're bracing ourselves from impact, I think, or at least I can only speak for myself and I can't speak for the 8 billion people. But I think the belief that if things can be quote unquote too good to be true, I don't want to disarmor my heart and open myself up to the potential pain
Yeah,
of being proven wrong.
only when we're willing to receive the pain, to experience the pain,
Yeah,
and only when and the only way that I got to be willing to experience the pain is by realizing that it's not pain at all. It's just the experience of growth,
yeah, it's feeling.
and it doesn't have to be painful.
It's
So I've
being, it's,
learned.
go on,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No, you
so
got
I've learned.
the guest.
I've learned that pain in and of itself is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's okay. When my mother died, I felt pain. Of course I did. The pain of her loss, the pain of knowing that she was no longer with me in part of life, as part of my life. But I've learned that pain and sadness are okay. So I don't try to avoid pain. I simply experience it as an okay part of life.
Hmm. Is pain a necessary ingredient for spiritual growth?
No, my answer is unequivocal. I don't think it is a necessary ingredient, but I do think that it is common among certain species. I believe that there are highly evolved beings in the universe, on other planets elsewhere in the cosmos who step into the fullness of who they are without any pain whatsoever in their life. So I don't think it's required for us to experience pain. But is it common, especially on this planet? I think yes. It's common, but not required. That's my response.
From your perspective, how common is unconditional love in our world? And what does unconditional love look like? How does that take form? And how common is it?
But my observation is not very common. I think that I think that sometimes it occurs between parents and children. Uh, in particular, I don't want to be sexist here, but I do think it occurs, from my observation, more often between mothers and their children than it does between fathers and their children. Mothers seemed, from my observation, to have a little bit more tolerance and a little bit more willingness to go into unconditional love. I love you no matter what. And at least that was my experience. My mother would say to me, I love you no matter what. And my father loved me for sure. He absolutely did love me. But there were certain conditions, there were rules in my father's love that you had to meet. And failure to meet those rules would cause him to distance himself and to remove his love from us, or to limit our experience of his love until he got what he wanted. So my father's love was more transactional. So to answer your question, from my experience, it's just my experience. I could be wrong about all of this. But from my experience, unconditional love among the people is not a common ex expression. It's not demonstrated commonly in the relationships that I have observed and that I have experienced.
How could a person wake themselves up to living a life of unconditional love for themselves and for the world, for their
By simply
relationships?
by simply treating other people the way they would like to be treated themselves. I mean, we had a guy walking around the planet here a little over 2,000 years ago who made that very clear. He simply said, do unto others as you would have it done unto you. It's really very simple. So I was told in my conversations with God, Neale, don't be a seeker. Stop seeking anything. Don't seek wisdom. Don't seek clarity. And for goodness sake, don't seek love from other people. Be the source of that which you wish to receive. Be the source of companionship. Be the source of love. Be the source of understanding. Be the source of generosity. Be the source of forgiveness. Be the source of whatever it is you wish to receive. Because what flows through you sticks to you. So the fastest way to experience anything is to give it away. You want to experience that you have enough money? Give some away. I had that direct experience. I remember this a few years ago. I was walking down the street and there was a guy sitting on the ground. He was on the pavement, leaning up against a building, and he was obviously a homeless person, and he had a little basket in front of him with a cardboard sign. In the basket, and the cardboard sign said, "Anything helps." And as I was walking toward him, I saw that sign, and I thought, you know what? Fair enough. I reached into my pocket, and it turned out that what I had in my pocket happened to be a $10 bill. I wasn't calculating it. It's just what was in my pocket. So I thought, oh, go ahead. This is not, 2 or 3 weeks ago. This is about 20 or 25 years ago, when $10 was a lot more than it is today. But I took that $10 bill. I thought, fair enough. And I dropped it into his basket. And I continued walking down the street. I wasn't looking for lots of compliments or big, huge thank yous. I just put it in the basket unobtrusively and walked down the street. But the feeling inside, oh, I have enough to drop a $10 bill in that guy's basket and hardly miss it at all. I had the experience of enough. And that's where it's been for me in every area of my life. Not just financially, but enough love, enough companionship, enough understanding, enough fun and joy in my life when I bring fun and joy into the life of another person. Enough fearlessness when I cause people around me to have no fear of anything either. I recall once, again, we're going back 20 or 25 years, when the book Conversation with God was really hot. It was a New York Times bestseller. And I was talking to large audiences. And a sponsor in Florida invited me to come and give a talk. And I was backstage just about ready to go on. And I was looking through the little backstage window that they have. And the place was packed. The auditorium was packed. I turned to the sponsor and I said, "How many people are out there?" He said, "Oh, around 3,000. I said, "I'm giving a talk to 3,000 who have paid money to come in here and see me. Oh my God." But I thought, step into fear or step out of fear. So I got out, I just went in front of the audience and I just told them exactly what was going on. I said, "Hi, my name is Neale and I'm not in my book. If you came here expecting to find a person who's living every single syllable in that book, you should go to the lobby right now and ask for your money back, because that's not who I am. I have not been able to step into the living of everything that was given to me to share. But at least I know the pathway. At least I know what I'm trying to do. For the first time in my life, I know what I'm trying to do. It's not about get the girl, get the car, get the house, get the job, get the office in the corner with your name on the door, get the building on the corner with your name on the building. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about get who you are and express it through you as you. And the best way to express it is to cause other people to know who they are because you entered their life. Give people back to themselves was the message I received from God. Neale, it's really very simple. Give people back to themselves. Let me give you a little example again, if I can, because it's one that I remember so vividly. I was coming out of a coffee shop about 18 years ago, and a policeman was putting a ticket on my car, a $35 parking ticket, because I had been overparked by, 25 minutes. And I looked at him and I said, "Officer, you got a minute for me to just chat with you?" He looked up and said, "Yeah." I'm sure he thought I was going to give him a ration for putting a ticket on my car, but I didn't. I walked over to the car and I said, "I just want you to know something. I'm very clear that when you put that piece of silver metal on your chest before you leave the house in the morning, that you're making a silent promise. You're promising to yourself that you will stand between danger and me, even if you have to lose your life to do it. I get what you're doing out here, and I will never forget the gift you give me. I feel safe on this sidewalk because of you." And he looked at me and he started to tear up the ticket. He pulled it out from under the windshield wiper and he was going to rip it apart. And I said, "No, no, 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 we're not doing that. This was not quid pro quo. This was not, a trade deal. Please put the ticket back. You're only doing your job. You're right. I was overparked. I deserve to get the ticket. Just keep on being who you are. I get who you are. And he looked at me, he walked over to me and said, you know what, mister? I've been on this force for 17 years. No one has ever said anything close to that to me. You haven't just made my day. You've made my career.
Hmm.
He blinked a little bit of water away from his eyes, turned around and walked away from me. Folks, give people back to themselves. Tell them what you see. Share with them the richness of who they are. Not just the person across the room who you're in love with, but the guy behind the counter at the post office, the lady at the supermarket at the cashier's post. Give people back to themselves.
I'd like to take a moment and share a word from our sponsor. This podcast is brought to you and us by these delicious, delectable longevity gummies referred to as MitoPure from Timeline. If you're experiencing things like brain fog, lower energy, trouble with recovery after working out, it could be supportive to you to support yourself at a cellular level. That is exactly what this compound referred to as urolithin A. This is the #1 doctor recommended urolithin A supplement on the market, and it promotes cellular energy, muscle strength, and longevity. What it does is it supports your mitochondria go through a process called mitophagy. So it's the breakdown of the old, gunky, crappy, crummy mitochondria to replenish with the new ones. Mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of your cells, and this stuff, the urolithin A, in these MitoPure gummies is helpful to replenish those mitochondria. If you want to try it for yourself, you go to timeline.com/align and you'll get 20% off. And also Timeline's clinically proven formula is now available at a new lower price. MitoPure now starts at $99 with the exact same science and formula. And my listeners get 20% off by going to timeline.com/align. I hope you guys enjoy. Something that I got from you as well, which I'd be curious how you interpret this now in this conversation. You are God deciding who you want to be. What does you are God deciding who you want to be mean to you?
I think that I am an aspect of divinity. Deciding who I want to be is an entity who is experiencing and demonstrating my true identity with everything that I think and say and do. Do I succeed all the time? Of course not. Do I succeed more than I did 30 years ago? Yeah, actually I do. Again, not bragging, just saying. Am I better as a human being at this process called evolution than I was when I was 50? Yeah. I'm only sorry it took so long.
What is the function of forgetting who we are? If we are God choosing who we want to be, what is the function of what could be called a state of amnesia of sorts, of forgetting the truth of who we are? Why do we do that?
Because it allows us to create. I was told in conversation with God, Neale, everything that's ever been, is now, and ever will be has already been created. And I said to God, I don't understand. What are you saying to me? God said, okay, let me give you an analogy. This is God talking to me. She said, Neale, you've ever played computer chess? I said, yeah, I've played computer chess. She said, well, of course, the whole game's already been played. Every move that you could possibly make has already been made
Hmm.
from every position on the board, with every player on the board, with every piece on the board. You can't make a move that hasn't already been made. The programmers have already designed the program that way. All you're doing is going through what's already happened, but it's occurring for the first time in your life.
Hmm.
Because if you remembered everything that's in the program, you couldn't experience the program. So you've allowed yourself not to know what's in the program. I thought, what a great analogy. I totally get it. So the purpose of forgetfulness is that I have forgotten what I already know. which allows me to recreate it as if it were brand new. And then I get to experience that aspect of divinity called I am the creator. Even though it's already happened in the overall scheme of things. I'll give you an example, another example. When the lady who became my seventh wife first entered into my life, I met her in a social circumstance. We were just two people meeting for the first time. But I recall when I looked at her the very first time, my first thought was, oh boy, here we go again. We've done this before. This is not our first time down this pathway. I knew at the soul level that I knew her soul at the soul level from a previous time. And you know what's fascinating? She told me the same thing. Not immediately, not that evening, but a few weeks later, we got to know each other a bit. We had a little lunch or two, and she told me the same thing. She said, I feel like I've known you for 100 years. I said, wow, I feel the same way. You know why? Because we have known each other, not for 100 years, for 1,000. And we
Is,
decided to be married.
is there anyone that we have not known for infinite amount of time in the construct of time? What is time?
There is no such thing as time. In my understanding, everything is happening right here, right now. And when we
Yeah.
go to the realm of the spiritual, time as we experience it does not exist. We've taken the only moment that there is, what I call the moment of now, and divided it into a trillion, cajillion, gazillion, what we call moments, in order to create a passageway through the eternal moment of now. But I don't have an answer to your question that I know is reliably true. But I I don't think that we've known everyone at the same level. For instance, I do feel that I knew my wife for 1,000 years at a deep, deep, deep level, a level that we were one. And we even had our wedding rings engraved. She wears the same ring that I wear. It's engraved out of silver with the word OTHER. You are my other.
Hmm.
We're simply the other part of the same soul. Now, do I feel that way about every single person that I've ever met in my life? Do I feel that way about Aaron? No.
Come on. I love you, bro.
I love you too, but we're not going to have the kind of relationship that I have with my wife. I promise you
Yeah,
that,
that's fair. I'm
because I don't feel like I've known you for 1,000 lifetimes.
I'm a
But I
great
do feel like,
I'm a great
I'm
little
sorry.
spoon.
Yeah. But sometimes sometimes we meet a person and we know it's our soul partner. We just know that.
For something that I've heard you communicate about, and I think probably read as well, is the value of obsession and the value of finding, again, I'm paraphrasing a lot of things, but once we find what feels like our purpose, life, I believe, and have experienced can kind of accelerate forward in time and space into where you're going. Something that I've personally experienced is much of my life feeling a bit aimless and a bit judgmental on myself for not having the answers of exactly where I'm going, or having a sensation of fear that maybe I won't figure it out, or a sensation of fear that the plan that I have won't work out, and then who will I be? Some people can, it sounds like you found this. I think I'm only kind of recently feel like I'm actually finding this, which I'm very grateful for. Um, have a sensation of certainty in their path. And I think that that can provide a tremendous amount of solace for someone, a sensation of I know the path that I'm on. I think much of the world is experiencing something that could maybe be called like a meaning crisis. Like, what is my meaning? What is my purpose? And then many people can place themselves into a double bind of the judgment upon themselves about that.
See, people think that their meaning and their purpose is something that they're given, something
Mhm.
that they're assigned,
Yeah.
or that should come to them. Look, folks, meaning and purpose are decisions that you make, and you can change your mind from moment to moment. What is my meaning and my purpose in this moment now? As opposed to try to figure out what is my meaning and purpose for the next 35 years. I've also learned something else about life. My little poem is do not require what you desire. I've learned that. Do not require what you desire.
Mm.
So it's okay with me if I set my purpose to do a certain thing and it doesn't work out that way.
Mhm.
Okay, fair enough. So I don't put all my eggs in one basket, so to speak. I never put all my eggs in one basket. I just let life happen. I make short-term decisions. Yeah. I want to do something by next Thursday. I want to do something by next April. I hope to complete this project by May or whatever it might be. But I don't decide what I want to do for the next 27 years. And I didn't when I was 40, much less now that I'm 82. So I've learned to just lay back.
Mhm.
Don't require what you desire.
In your, I love that. In your 82 years of life, what have you found to be the most effective with trimming or pruning rumination and contractive negative thoughts from yourself?
I just train my mind. My mind is like a good dog. I can train a dog and I can train my mind. When negative thoughts enter my mind, I simply tell my mind, no, we're not going there. No, I don't choose that. No, stop thinking those negative ideas, those negative thoughts. I have trained my mind to move away from any negative thought, and certainly from any consistently negative thought. I'm not saying I might not have a negative thought for a moment here or there, or I see something on the news I disagree with or whatever, but I'm saying I don't have thoughts that I entertain consistently, continually, over and over again. No, when I catch myself having the same negative thought two or three times, look, I say to my mind, cut it out, stop it, just stop it. Or to use an interesting turn of phrase, Neale, change your mind. Change your mind about that.
Hmm.
Stop it. So I just, you know, I read an incredible book about 50 years ago. A guy named Norman Vincent Peale wrote the book. It was titled The Power of Positive Thinking.
Mhm.
Changed my life.
Yep.
The power of positive thinking.
What is the power of positive thinking?
It causes you to create positive outcomes in your life
Hmm.
because you're sending creative energy into the universe around you, into the world in which you live. Thought is creative. I'm sorry to be so elementary, but that is one of the first lessons I learned in my conversations with God. as a man thinketh. Again, there was this guy who was walking around the planet a couple of thousand years ago. And he said that to the lady who approached him. Master, she said, if I could just touch your garment, I would be healed. I have a very serious illness, but if I could just touch your garment, I would be healed. And he turned to her and he said, do you believe that? She said, yes, I do. I believe it absolutely. Just let me touch your garment and I'll be healed. He said, as you believe it, so will it be done unto you. And he turned to his disciples who were aghast at the miracle because she was healed in that self-same moment right in front of them. She could get up and walk again. She hadn't walked in 25 years. And they were astonished. And he looked at his disciples and he said something quite interesting. Why are you so amazed? These things and more shall you do also. And we have done those things and more. Aaron, 10 years ago, I had open heart surgery. Not a triple bypass, not a quadruple bypass. I had a quintuple bypass. They were taking veins out of every part of my body and putting them into my heart. That wouldn't have been possible 50 years ago. But these things shall we do also. Life is very simple, Aaron. It's really very simple.
How often do you think about death, Neale?
All the time.
What's that like?
I think, wow, it's right around the corner. Could happen any moment.
Me too.
I have what doctors now call CAD. I have coronary artery disease. My
Wow.
doctors won't let me drive. I can't drive a car anymore because they don't want me to have an episode behind the wheel and take out a family of 5 children, along with me. So
Wow.
they strongly advise that I don't get behind the wheel.
Wow.
Call a taxi or an Uber or somebody and don't get behind the wheel. So I don't. My wife drives me everywhere.
Hmm.
But I think about death all the time. And it's okay. I'm not afraid of death. I'm
Hmm.
not worried about death. I'm not concerned about death. I'm not trying to avoid death. It's okay. Because I learned an astonishing thing from my mother when she was dying. They gave us each 5 minutes to be with her, my brothers and I and my father. The doctor said, she was in the intensive care ward of the hospital, and they said, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. She doesn't have much time left. And I knew when I went into that room, it was probably going to be the last time I ever saw her. So I had a little tear in my eye, of course. My mother looked at me and she said, sweetheart, don't cry. Don't cry. Make me a promise. I said, anything, anything. What can I promise you, Mom? She said, promise me that you'll dance on my grave. I know where I'm going. Dance on my grave. Celebrate. And you know what? I did it. I actually went to her grave 3 months later. It was in a different state. I was living in California and she was in Wisconsin. I went to her gravesite in Wisconsin. Her father took me there. My father took me there, her husband. Dad took me there and he said, you want to visit Mom's grave? Okay. We went to her gravesite. I said, Dad, can I have just 5 minutes alone? He said, sure. He walked away and gave me some privacy. And when I looked around to make sure no one else was watching, I actually got up on her grave and did a little soft shoe, did a little dance. This is for you, love. I know where you are. I celebrate for you. I never forgot that encounter. Now that I'm 82, it's okay. I could die tomorrow. It's okay. Or as my friend Elizabeth Kubler-Ross used to say, Neale, when you're not afraid of dying, you're not afraid of living. It's all very simple.
From your perspective, Neil, what does it mean to be a man? And how are modern men the most confused in their relationship to what it means to be a good man?
I don't think about what it means to be a man. I think about what it means to be a human being of either gender.
Hmm.
So I don't think of myself in terms of what it means to be a man. In fact, when I was 19, 20, 22, 23, most people who knew me, I was deeply involved in the theater. I was a wonderful actor. I did some pretty good jobs in community theater and even got into professional theater and made some money as an actor, appeared in a couple of movies and so forth. But a lot of people who knew me thought that I was gay. So I didn't think of myself as a particular sexual orientation or a particular gender. I don't think of myself as a man. I think of myself as a human,
Hmm.
as a human.
Hmm.
And what does it mean to me to be a good human? To do the best I can in demonstrating from moment to moment the next grandest version of the greatest vision I ever held about what it means to be an individuation of divinity.
How do you feel people are the most confused in today's world? As an 82-year-old man that grew up, you're probably
I,
born in the 40s
I,
or so, right?
I don't think, yes, 1943, yes. I don't think that most people understand who they are and why they're here. That's been my experience. There are some who do, of course, but we're looking at the majority of people. I don't think that one over half, 51%. I don't think that the majority of people understand, from my observation, I don't think they understand who they are and why they're here. What I mean by here is on the earth, why they're here in their body, in the
Hmm.
realm of the physical,
Why are we here?
to announce and declare, to express and fulfill, to become and to experience our true identity as individuations of divinity. We are here in the realm of the physical because in the realm of the physical, that which we are not exists. It's a contextual field. In the realm of the spiritual, there is nothing that we are not. All there is freedom, joy, and love. It's paradise. That's why it's called heaven. But in the realm of the physical, which God created in the way it was created, there is that which we are and that which we are not. And I said to God, when she explained it to me, I said, I don't quite understand all of this. He said, Neale, let's use a metaphor. Don't get all excited about this, but just as a metaphor, Neale. Supposing you decided that you are the light. Can you say that? Say that to me. Neale, I am the light. So I said to God, okay, I am the light. God said, now supposing you were a candle in the sun, along with the 50 million cajillion other candles that make up the sun. Would you be able to experience yourself as the light? You could know yourself as the light, but if you want to have the experience of being the light, what would you have to do? Oh, surround yourself with darkness. I see. Therefore, my son, raise not your fist and curse the darkness not, but be a light unto the darkness, that you might know who you really are, and that all those whose lives you touch might know who they really are as well. It's really very simple, Aaron.
Is the fastest, most authentic way uh, to embody that, what you're saying that I believe to be a truth, something like a near-death experience, or something like, I already asked you about, is pain necessary for spiritual development? But understanding, like, people could read Conversations with God, or read a lot of different books, or talk to someone who's maybe a channel, or anything that, or just listen to themselves, listen to their own internal, wisdom they have within themselves, that we all do. It still oftentimes stays within the mind and stays within the intellect. What does a person need for what you're saying to be an actual, like enlightenment? What does a person need for enlightenment?
The desire to share, the desire to be the source of that which they wish to experience. As I said 12 minutes ago, if you wish to experience enlightenment, cause another person to experience enlightenment. Do you think it's a coincidence that every single person that we've called a spiritual master, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, Catherine of Genoa, Julian of Norwich, Mother Teresa, Teresa of Avila, Elizabeth of Hungary, male and female masters throughout the years? Is it a coincidence that every single one of them has been a teacher? I don't think it's a coincidence. Obviously, they experienced that the way to know who they are is to cause another to know who they are. Or as God said,
Hmm.
be the source in the life of another of what you wish to experience in your own life. You want to experience more companionship? Be the source of more companionship in the life of 5 other people. You want to experience more humor? Be the source of more humor in the life of 5 other people.
Mm-hmm.
You want to experience more compassion? Be the source of more compassion in the life of 5 other people. You want to experience more sex in your life? Well, anyway, you get the point.
It's like the analogy of waiting to get warmth out of the stove without putting any logs into the stove. It's like we're waiting for the world to do something to us or bring something for us. And there's the availability or invitation to be the thing that you seek.
To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to rise up against a sea of troubles, and by opposing to end them, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there is the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil.
Thank you so much for making time to this. It's a real honor and privilege to get to share time with you. I really
I've
appreciate
enjoyed being here with you. It's
it.
been very enjoyable.
Is there anything to leave people with from here, or anything that would be supportive to leave people with?
My closing thought would be God's closing thought with me. She said, Neale, your life is not about you. Your life is about everyone whose life you touch and the way in which you touch it. But when you live that way, Neale, then you will discover that in the cosmic sense, your life is about you for an elegant reason. There's only one of us in the room. We are all one. Simply looking upon another version of the self. When you live your life that way, your life will change magnificently for the better. I could, of course, be wrong about all of that. But to me, it seems very simple.
Yeah. You can't hurt anyone else. You can't steal from anyone else. You can't love anyone else. You can only hurt yourself, steal from yourself, love yourself. I noticed that. Well, I'll shut up. But I was just in Asia. I was in Bali for a couple months, and that was something I noticed. That I think a part of their culture is, really deeply rooted in karma, and it seems like there's something about the operating system of that kind of karmic relationship to the world that if I'm stealing from you, I'm stealing from myself, and if I'm loving you, I'm loving myself. And it seems like that would be something that'd be very supportive for more humans to really embody. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, my friend. Good to be here with you.
Yep. All right, that is it. That is all. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed that episode, you might also enjoy this episode over here, as well as this one over here. Thank you for subscribing. Appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video.